What if millions of people around the world just disappeared, leaving nothing behind but their clothes? At New York Airport, college student Chloe phones her mother Irene, informing her of her arrival, and discovers her father's birthday celebration has been called off due to an unexpected work assignment. With her father being a pilot, Chloe opts to remain at the airport, hoping to find him. Nearby, television reporter Cameron is confronted by a devout Christian woman attempting to persuade him to embrace Jesus, suggesting that the Bible explains all the tragedies he encounters in his profession. Chloe interjects, arguing that God punishes innocent people for ancestral sins and that working in mysterious ways is merely an excuse. As the woman departs, she thanks Chloe for her intervention. Chloe explains to Cameron that her mother is similarly obsessed with religion. In the parking area, Cameron's father Rayford removes his wedding band before meeting stewardess Hattie. Upon entering the terminal, Rayford spots Chloe and rushes to embrace her. Chloe responds coldly, having observed his flirtatious behavior with the stewardess, and confronts him about it, referencing her parents' troubled relationship. Rayford explains they married very young and people evolve significantly over time. Since Irene became fixated on religion, living with her has become unbearable. Noticing her father's missing ring, Chloe suspects he accepted today's assignment specifically to be with Hattie. Ignoring her comment, Rayford hands over his car keys before departing. Later, Chloe agrees to coffee with Cameron, where they discuss the irrationality of attributing tragedies to divine intervention. Their conversation halts when an employee delivers to you concert tickets for London, meant for her father, which took 2 weeks to acquire. This reveals he'd planned his trip well in advance rather than responding to a sudden call. Frustrated, Chloe hands the tickets to Cameron, requesting he deliver them instead. While Cameron and Rayford board the aircraft, Chloe checks her father's car and discovers his wedding ring. At home, she greets her brother Rummy before sitting down with her mother. Initially cordial, the conversation grows tense when Chloe mentions the airport incident. When Irene begins preaching, Chloe becomes aggravated and walks away. Seeking distraction, Chloe takes Rummy to the mall. The boy expresses concern about their parents, but Chloe reassures him everything will improve, and they embrace. Suddenly, a flash of light occurs and Chloe finds herself holding only Remy's empty clothes. He has vanished. Around her, others discover their loved ones similarly missing. People begin looting abandoned shops and belongings of the missing. Outside, massive traffic congestion blocks all streets. Aboard Rayford's flight, some passengers engage in friendly conversation while others prefer solitude. Once cruising altitude is reached, Rayford discreetly leaves the cockpit to meet Hattie and show her the tickets Cameron delivered. Abruptly, the aircraft experiences turbulence as passengers realize several people have mysteriously disappeared. Panic ensues as the plane loses altitude, prompting Rayford to rush back to the cockpit only to find his co-pilot missing. He immediately takes control to stabilize the aircraft. Cameron begins recording the chaos as frantic passengers pound on the cockpit door demanding to see the captain. Hattie fails to restore order, and Cameron's attempts to assist prove futile. Monitoring this on the cabin cameras, Rayford increases cabin pressure, causing oxygen masks to deploy. Struggling to breathe, passengers are forced to return to their seats and use the masks. After restoring normal cabin pressure, he addresses the passengers, his commanding presence compelling them to remain seated. He emphasizes that panic represents their greatest threat and urges composure until more information becomes available. Later, Hattie realizes her fellow stewardess has also vanished and seeks comfort from Rayford in the cockpit as she experiences emotional distress. With passengers ignoring instructions to stay seated, Cameron resumes recording and interviewing them. No one witnessed anything unusual. The disappearances occurred instantaneously, leaving only clothing behind. A panicked woman rushes to the lavatory to consume illicit substances before returning to her seat, insisting none of this is real. Cameron advises her to sleep while noticing she's written "It's not real" on her hand. A Muslim passenger suggests prayer, but another passenger argues with him, citing their different deities making shared prayer impossible. Before the situation escalates, Rayford announces their return to New York. Pushing through the crowded mall, Chloe finally breaks free and rushes to the parking lot, desperately searching for Rummy. Suddenly, A small aircraft plummets from the sky, crashing directly onto Rayford's car. With no other options, Chloe begins walking when two passing motorcyclists swipe her brother's bag. A catastrophic accident unfolds as a bridge collapses, sending a school bus plunging into the river below. Chloe sprints to assist but discovers the bus eerily empty. Reaching town, she attempts to call home but receives no answer. Vehicles collide throughout the streets as an ambulance arrives for the injured. Chloe dashes toward it, thinking Rummy might be among the victims, but police officers hold her back. Continuing through town, she witnesses the glass facade of a jewelry store explode outward, ejecting a lifeless robber onto the pavement. The store clerk emerges brandishing a gun, aiming it at Chloe until she flees. Upon reaching the hospital, she notices an ominous sign declaring the end is here. Television news reports confirm disappearances nationwide, with chaos spreading rapidly. The hospital entrance is besieged by frantic crowds searching for missing loved ones. Unable to enter conventionally, Chloe circles around back, shatters a glass door, and slips inside. Weaving through packed corridors, she reaches the nursery only to find all infants vanished. While inspecting rooms, a distraught mother approaches, revealing children of all ages have disappeared globally, not just in America. Meanwhile, Rayford discovers another aircraft on their flight path and attempts radio contact without success. The other plane still has passengers but no pilots. Hattie urgently instructs passengers to secure their seatbelts while Rayford maneuvers his aircraft. Although he tilts enough to avoid a direct collision, his wing strikes the other plane. Cameron observes from his window as the damaged aircraft descends in flames. Amid the chaos, a suspicious passenger examines the Muslim man's bag seeking a bomb, finding only an electric toothbrush. Another passenger suggests technology couldn't cause these disappearances, theorizing alien abduction. Shortly after, passengers alert Hattie about something disturbing on the wing. Hattie has Cameron photograph the damage for Rayford, who determines the wing is barely attached, making landing perilous. With autopilot malfunctioning, Rayford sends Cameron to inspect for fuel leakage, which he confirms is occurring. A passenger notices and panics while a woman becomes hysterical, demanding to return to where her child vanished. The wing suddenly ignites, causing the plane to shake violently and intensifying passenger panic. Hattie and Cameron urge everyone to remain calm. Cameron informs Rayford, who admits he can only attempt reaching New York before fuel depletion. Eventually, the fire extinguishes itself, but their significant fuel loss forces an earlier descent. Meanwhile, Chloe returns to her neighborhood, finding people grieving their missing family members. Rushing home, Chloe discovers that her mother's jewelry abandoned in the shower and only static on the voicemail. Finding Irene's Bible, she angrily hurls it through the window. She confronts the local pastor, who explains this is the Rapture God taking believers and children to heaven before dark times arrive. His own presence confirms his failure to truly believe despite years of preaching. Chloe screams at him before storming out. On the plane, Rayford examines his co-pilot's belongings, finding a watch inscribed with John 3:16, the biblical passage promising eternal life to believers. Hattie brings the other stewardesses items, including a Bible study notebook. Rayford concludes this is indeed the Rapture, a revelation Hattie dismisses as absurd. In the cabin, a woman brandishes a gun, demanding truth from passengers she suspects were sent by her husband to abduct her daughter. While Cameron attempts to defuse the situation, another passenger with religious education explains how the events match Rapture descriptions. The armed mother contemplates suicide until Cameron shares personal stories that convince her to surrender the weapon. Rayford finally receives radio contact, learning the disappearances occurred worldwide. With the airport crowded with crashed planes, he's directed inland. Before he can protest, radio communication fails again. Cameron attempts calling Chloe using his satellite phone, but hasn't connected all day. Showing Cameron the note Chloe left, Rayford explains his desire to apologize, admitting responsibility for their failed relationship by walking away whenever Irene mentioned God. Meanwhile, a despondent Chloe climbs a bridge, apologizes to her mother for her treatment, and prepares to jump. Cameron's call finally connects as she contemplates suicide. She and Rayford exchange I love you and acknowledge Irene was right. Rayford explains his uncertain landing prospects before the call drops. Learning her father lives renews Chloe's will. She descends and races back to town, commandeering an abandoned bicycle. Simultaneously, Rayford informs passengers of their slim survival chances and encourages prayer. As the plane descends, Chloe reaches a construction site, boards a truck, and begins clearing space. She successfully reconnects with Cameron, informing her father she's found a landing location. With the plane's guidance systems offline, Cameron requests coordinates through her phone's compass app before the call disconnects again. He inputs these coordinates into his map, providing Rayford directional guidance. Darkness obscures visibility as the plane exhausts its final fuel reserves. Reconnecting, Rayford requests a substantial light source. Chloe locates nearby gas tanks, douses them with fuel, and ignites them, creating a massive explosion. Rayford spots the flames and begins descent. Chloe jumps back into the truck to escape but crashes, distracted by the blaze. The plane strikes cables during descent, causing turbulence. Upon landing, it tilts when the rear wheels fail to deploy. The tail and wing drag along the ground until Rayford stabilizes the aircraft, its wing barely missing Chloe's truck. The plane slides forward several miles, colliding with numerous obstacles. It appears headed for a massive gas tank but stops just short, sparing everyone. Hattie deploys the evacuation slide as Chloe's fire erupts again. Passengers disembark safely. Chloe embraces Cameron and Rayford, who acknowledges he should never have left. She returns both wedding rings as they observe the distant town engulfed in flames. Cameron declares it the world's end, but Chloe insists it's merely the beginning. Remember to subscribe and activate notifications for similar content. Thanks for watching.